So before we get stuck into my brand new podcast series, Brothers in Rhythm, I do just want to read out a short disclaimer, so just bear with me. Just want to thank you all for being here. As I say, before we get stuck into this new podcast series, I just want to say that we are going to be talking about and touching on some very difficult, sensitive and emotional topics. And the light on my Mac just went down, so I couldn't see what I was reading. But this does mean that this content could be hard for you to watch or listen to. It could be triggering for you. So please do take it easy on yourself. If you need to pause at any time, just like me, I'm sure I will be doing that during this. Do that. Take a pause. You can stop, come back whenever you want. This content will always be here for you, as will we. If you do need any support, you can reach out to us. We're not professionals, but we are always here with a friendly ear. So thank you. So who is this guy sitting in front of you today, starting his new podcast series? What's it all about? I am Michael Wall. I'm in just outside Brighton in the UK. I think most of the people coming to my coming to this content will probably know me as being a DJ, Waxworks. Some people know me by the name of Wally. Some people know me by the name of Mikey, Blue Boy, and also Little Gay Monkey. Which we'll be talking about later on in the podcast. And my brother, who is with me over here, Ross. Say hello, Ross.
Hi.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. You all right?
Yeah, he's gonna be joining in this podcast series with us today. So it's called Brothers in Rhythm, and it is in memory of our late brother Tim, and we're going to be talking about our relationship as brothers, all of us together. And what we've been through. And it's been quite a ride, to say the least.
Definitely.
So I'm just going to have a little sip of water and take a moment, compose myself. Yeah, we've got a lovely setup here today, brought to you by Audio Mango, our amazing friend Gav at Audio Mango. So we're very, very thankful for him to making this possible today and making us feel as at ease and as comfortable as possible for talking about everything we are going to be sharing with you today in this podcast. We're also going to be joined by my partner in crime, my wife, my best friend, Sacha. And we're all going to be talking about our relationships together with Tim, and specifically a lot about what we went over, what we've been through in the last 2.5 years since lockdown in 2020. And actually, the reason that we're doing it the way that we're doing it today is obviously it would be really hard for me to just sit here today and talk to a camera. And share all the things that I'm going to share today. It's much easier when you've got someone by your side. And I've been lucky enough to have this lovely lady right here by my side for, I've got to get this right now, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble, 9 years? 8 years married, 9 years together.
Just over.
Yeah,
everything's
really
easier
specific.
with two.
Everything's easier with two. So yeah, I think we're going to start with just talking about mine and Tim's relationship growing up together, I suppose.
Yeah, tell me about you brothers.
Us brothers. So
where did the madness start?
Our house in the middle of our street. Used to dance to the tune of a Rocksteady beat.
There's a song about that.
There is a song about that. And there's
couple of nutty boys, were you?
We were, yeah. I was definitely a nutty little boy. The amount of sugar I was on, bouncing off the walls. Literally, no pun intended, last name Wall. But yeah, I came into the world in 1977. It was the Queen's Silver Jubilee. Not that we should give her any airtime. But my brother was 10 years older than me. We had two other siblings that were 12 years and 14 years older than me. So as my dad would put it, I was, I didn't know I could still do that. But yeah, I grew up idolizing my brother. By the time I was 3, I was bouncing around the lounge with my microphone, singing along to Madness. They were one of the prominent bands at the time, UK ska band. And yeah, Tim was a skinhead. And I just idolised my brother, always looked up to him, and he protected me from the moment I came into this world. And although I didn't realise it at the time, I helped protect him in many ways.
Since we got together, I have had the pleasure of hearing so many stories. And we got together in 2012, end of 2012. I was living in Essex. And Mike came along as one of my DJs on the radio station. And when he came into my life, and it was pretty much a whirlwind, that's a story for another day. But one of the things I always loved about him was all of his stories, because they were always so detailed and so real. And you've been all over the world and done all kinds of things in your life. Yeah. And I love hearing your stories, and like I said, it's about sharing our stories, and this is we all have people that aren't in our lives for all kinds of different reasons, and so I can feel the emotion, I can hear the emotion, I can feel the energy, and I can feel his presence all the time, and I love hearing your stories, and your story with your brother is a beautiful one.
Yeah.
And it's a real one, and it starts with the music, really, didn't it?
Yeah, it was. He was into Madness, so I loved Madness. I actually got to go and see them in concert when I was 3. That's another story. And then we sadly lost our father in '94. And I was only 17, he was 27, but it set us off on a path travelling, and we went to the other side of the world, literally. We went to New Zealand for 3 months together, backpacking around New Zealand. It was me and my brother and a good friend of mine, James Muggeridge, who was supposed to be going to America with another friend, but that fell through because the other friend's girlfriend didn't want him to go in the end, so he had saved all this money for this trip. And I literally rang him about 2 weeks before we were due to go. Muggs rang him in the morning. He's answered the phone. He'd been out the night before, so he was a bit hungover. He's like, what do you want? What do you want? I was like, do you want to go to New Zealand next week? And he's like, shut up, put the phone down, ring him back. No, mate, I'm serious. 2 weeks later, there we are, me and my brother Tim and my mate Muggsy land in Auckland in New Zealand, and I'd only been abroad a couple of times before that, so to be the other side of the world at that age.
And Tim was about to get married before that, wasn't he? He was engaged.
He was engaged, yeah. That's a whole story there as well, a whole love story. And
a shout out to Geraldine.
To Geraldine, yeah. Massive part of my brother's life. And he's still a massive part of hers, I know. She's still connected.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It really is.
But I did come back to the UK initially. I wanted to come back for my 18th birthday and miss my friends, all that kind of normal teenage stuff. And so I came back and we went to Rutherford's, the club on the pier in Worthing, for my 18th. All my friends got kicked out before midnight for fighting. I remember walking down the pier, dropping my change and other things through the cracks in the pier and being like, oh my God, now I've got to walk home. And walking along the bright, seafront from Worthing to Shoreham. So, it's only a couple of miles, but when you've had quite a few shandies, in the wind, in the rain, and just thinking, what have I done? Why have I come back? My brother and Muggsy stayed. They went on to the South Island in New Zealand, and then went on to Sydney, Australia. So I saved up, sold my car, and jumped back on a plane, dragged another friend with me, Ricky Coombs, big shout out to Ricky, and we went and met up with my brother, who was then at a place called the Harbourside Hotel.
I've heard a lot about the Harbourside.
Shout out to all the Harboursiders. There's a lot of love that's come in from a lot of them. Sorry.
So it's a really brave thing you're doing here, Mike, and you're allowed to stop and pause as well. It is a really brave thing, and I know it's a really important thing to you. And obviously your pain is my pain.
It's really emotional, yeah. Just so that people can be aware, if you're not, we tragically lost my brother Tim. It will be 2 years this weekend, in unexplained circumstances.
Not fully explained to us.
Yeah, and we've been through a difficult time, and a lot of love has come in from people that me and Tim met around the world, and it means the world. So I say thank you. We do need a sponsor. We do need a tissue sponsor. Kleenex would be great. If you've got an issue, we've got a tissue. But this is demonstrating what this podcast is all about. It's all right for guys to cry. It's all right for all of us to cry.
We're not going to spend the whole podcast crying.
No.
But yeah, it is important to be able to let go. And I've seen you go through a huge amount of emotion since your brother reached out for help, and since you lost your brother, and since. And you're a very brave man, and in my humble opinion, it's a bigger man that can cry and show his emotions than one that doesn't. And that's not that there's anything bad about that, but you know, many boys and men have been brought up to not show your emotions and be strong, and you know, and just like stick up for your brothers and be hard, and you know, and this is what this podcast is all about.
It is,
you know, it's about your brotherly love.
That's its purpose. Its purpose is to be able to let other guys come in and talk to me about whatever issue it is that they're not talking about openly.
Sharing that space.
Opening a space for people to be able to share what they want to share.
And of course, it's something that I know we all wish that we would have been able to do more with Tim.
Exactly
to be able to talk.
Yeah, that's all he ever wanted to do. He wanted us all to talk together. And that's what we were prevented from doing.
And it's such an important thing to do. So,
breaking the silence now. If we go back to the nice bit for a bit, the travel story, and being in Australia, that was an amazing experience. 2.5 years living in an absolute madhouse, mate. You know, and I remember turning up. So actually, my friend, the night before I went, thought it would be funny to bleach blonde, dye my hair. So I looked like Brad from Neighbours when I turned up, and obviously instantly got bullied. But my brother had already been there for 6 months, and he was already friends with everyone there, so it was all like, you know, really in jest. And Timmy's little brother was just welcomed into the fold, basically, and my little mate Ricky. And we had 2.5 crazy years there, man. We went on a 3-month tourist visa. Ended up staying there that long, and just handing ourselves in when we left and saying sorry, we loved the country too much, so we couldn't leave. We just spent our time bumming around, surfing,
having an amazing time by the sounds of things.
Having a good time, yeah. After that, I'd met a girl and gone on to live in Canada for 3 years. Tim popped over and came to visit us while I was living there. But then we went on to do 3 seasons together in Mallorca and Andorra, and he was a holiday rep, and I was DJ, obviously.
In comes the DJ.
More of a Oggy DJ than the Waxworks DJ that most people might know me for. It's all experience. And our first season together was in Andorra. Our second season was in Magaluf in 2000.
Shagaloof,
yeah, Magaluf to Palm and over. Everybody shagging all over. Right, British tourist trap kind of resort, but a lot of fun when you're young. And I might say my brother was repping, and there was he had his team of reps, and they would come into the club and they'd do their full Monty in front of the 1830s and all of that. And I was DJing in the club, and as I said, one of the names that I've gone under in the past is Little Gay Monkey, because that's what my brother used to call me all the time. What you doing, you little gay monkey? Or, you know, that's wrong, you little gay monkey. Gay monkey a lot. And he was Chief Monkey. So we met a guy called he was then called Bob. His real name's Anthony. Anthony Malloy. But the first season we were out there, me, Tim, met Bob and Laura, a girl that we call our sister. And we were all repping for a bar called Paradise Lost. And Bob became Northern Monkey, because he's from Blackburn. And then the other monkeys were Klutz Monkey, Gayest of the Gay Monkeys, Last of the Mahunkies. And have I missed
Last
any
of the Mahunkies.
I better not miss any monkeys out. But yeah, we all ended up getting a tattoo on our backsides of a monkey emblem, doing a shot of tequila in the eye, lemon in the eye, snorting the salt, doing the shot of the tequila. And our little monkey tags, so we had those on our backsides.
All went in together, all very drunk.
My brother already covered in tattoos, right? And he was the first one to go in. And he goes in and we're all sitting there waiting. And you just hear him screaming. And we're like, what? And he came out and we were like, are you joking? Winds up how painful that sounded. He went, no. And we're like, you've had them everywhere. He's like, I've never had one more painful than on your butt. And it was like...
The more fleshy. Ow.
Fleshy.
Ow.
But that, the travelling aside, we both then came back to the UK and got into working as residential social workers. The beginning of where that story comes from is another story. I think
stories upon stories. We've got lots of podcasts.
There are stories upon stories, and we've got plenty of time to do so.
Got a lifetime.
Yeah, we both worked for residential children's home and then a company called Asphalea. Tim working with unaccompanied asylum seekers, and I was working with English kids that needed to redo their exams as a mentor.
Tell us what that's like, working with those kids just coming out of care and the children's homes that you worked in.
The children's homes was the first experience. Well, the first experience, we also grew up in a foster family because my best friend when I was 11 disclosed to me that he had been abused by his father, him and his little sister, and my mum and dad at the time ended up becoming foster parents, first fostering him. So that's why we went into what we went into in a way. The children's homes, I mean, I worked in ones in Lancing and Worthing, and it was just no rules, no holds barred, basically. The kids had the run of the homes. The staff were often shutting themselves in the office.
Just
the kids were using the local police officers as a local taxi service. But I was
quite out of the bonfire, out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah. But I was a bit younger than most of the staff, and the kids really related to me. And quite often would go, "You're just like one of us, Mikey, aren't you?" And if they were going out that night to abscond, they'd tell me and go, "Look, Mike, you're not going to have a night's sleep tonight. I'm going to be not getting back until about 4 or whatever." But jokes aside, it's not a place where these kids should be ending up. Quite often based close to train stations. Quite often within roads where they know that there are predators that have been released into the community. The police know all of this. Why are they putting them in these areas? Close to where they can abscond and be moved around.
And this is obviously being talked a lot about at the moment, from Rotherham to every institution.
And they're talking about a lot of historic stuff here, back in the 80s. But, I'm talking about when I was working in these places was 2002, early 2000s to late 2000s. And they haven't got any better.
No.
No.
They're not getting any better.
No. But me and Tim worked side by side in those places as well. And then, in Asphalea, we ended up, when we were working there, as I say, Tim was working with the unaccompanied asylum seekers and I was working with the English kids. And one of the things that we did that was really nice is that I wrote to the Chelsea Charity Trust and to see if we could get some tickets for the kids that we were working with. And they gave us 12 tickets, I can't remember, every 3 months or whatever it was, to take groups of kids up there. So we took half from the asylum seeking side and half from the English kids side. I know, we're crazy, right? But it really, really worked. Taking them to their first ever football game at a stadium, and these African kids were just like, in heaven. The English kids more spoilt at this point, trying to act really cool and give it all that, but bringing the two cultures together, by the end of it, they were getting on like a house on fire, almost too well, some of them. But yeah, and we also did a massive sports day at a sports centre in Worthing where we got all the kids down there and we had football, table tennis, badminton, so nobody was excluded, whatever level sport they could do, and they all came down and got involved.
Bringing them together.
Yeah, bit of unity in the community.
Yeah.
And some of the kids that we worked with also lived with us under our roof with me and my brother and my mum.
It's time to bring Ross back in, isn't it?
But not the other two older siblings. They'd moved out when we started, when the fostering happened, and got married and had moved on. So
how old were you when your elder siblings
11,
left?
12. He got moved out when I was 3. It's going over my nan.
Yeah.
But talking about those brothers, it is time to bring in...
Talking about the brothers, yeah. Yeah.
You and Ross have a chat now, yeah? Give me a little debrief.
Okay,
yeah.
So Ross,
Yep.
we're giving Mike a little breather.
Yes, we
little
are.
Mike, he's been through a lot, hasn't
He has been through a hell of a lot, yeah.
he? It's not been an easy time.
Definitely not, no. Definitely not.
Life ain't easy though, is it?
Life's not easy, no. 100% not easy.
It's not been an easy ride. So how did you pop up into the family?
Into the family.
Somebody shouting in the background. How did you meet Mike and Tim?
I met Mike and Tim because their mum fostered me. So I was a foster son with their mum and them. That's how...
How old were you then?
It's 15 years young,
15 years young.
Yeah, it was different.
How do you describe yourself when you was 15?
Trouble. Realistically, yeah, trouble, Like every teenage boy is, I suppose, at that sort of age,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're still a kid. And you're
Still a
innocent.
kid, still learning.
And you hadn't had an easy ride on the way up.
Oh, definitely not. No. But that, it's life. It's life, really, and you have to make the best of things that you can. So
you do indeed.
Yeah.
So when you turned up with at the foster family, tell us about Tim and Mike.
Well, when I got there, I think the boys were still travelling. And then I think Tim came back first, from what I can remember, and Mike wasn't that far behind.
Never far behind.
Always there. So it was
double trouble, weren't they?
It was fun. It was fun to grow up with, Michael was pumping the music every single Saturday morning, so you didn't get a lay-in. But, that was his passion, so, you had to appreciate that.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was all right. It was all right.
Nice to come and have a couple of bigger brothers.
Yeah, definitely. It's one thing I never got, was... obviously, I've got other siblings, but never had brothers, so it was real nice to actually have that that brother figure around. Realistically, someone you can talk to about things that you can't talk to anyone else about. You know, so yeah, it was nice. It was real nice.
Yeah, I think this is what bro love's all about, isn't it? I was only child till I was 10, and I've always been the oldest, so yeah, I've never had the big bro.
Yeah,
and I kind of always wanted that as well. And
yeah, it's a needed thing, I think, and you know what I mean.
Brotherly love's an important thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's 100%. Brotherly love all the way.
Indeed. So time went on, and you left. You had to move out when your time and come when you got to adulthood, as it were.
Well, apparently so at 16.
At
apparently
16.
You're an adult at 16.
Yeah,
apparently.
so why is that in the care system, that you're an adult at 16, but for the rest of the world you have to wait till you're 18? Any ideas about that?
I don't really know, to be honest, because you're still a child until you hit about 21 anyway, so I don't think that ever changes.
And so what happened then when you were 16 and you were...
It was my time to move out. I could no longer live in the foster family scenario anymore, and I had to venture out at the age of 16 and live, pretty much. Well, I was living with one other person, but it was just me and him, and that was it. And it's not an easy thing to do.
It's not easy when you're 16, is it?
No, because normally you'd have to. You're parents there to guide you.
A support network.
Exactly. Didn't have that. I had to guide myself. And at 16, you're not really guiding yourself. You're just sort of flowing with it, and hopefully you come out the other side.
Yeah, hoping for the best.
Pretty much.
Having no fucking clue what you're doing.
That's it. Well, that is it. And that's what they do to you. They sort of, we're going to care for you to a certain amount, and then we're just going to, go live your life, sort of thing. And it's not the best way to do it, really, but
the care system gives when you're a child, and the care system gives as you kind of move into adulthood, has a lot to be desired, I would say, don't you? From somebody out of it. I
feel like they need to change the way they're doing it because it's not working. Honestly, it's not working. The care system
is broken and it doesn't care.
Yeah, they don't care enough. Basically, it's a money game. It's like everything else is in the world. It's no care. There's no actual care. It's literally just moved around constantly. You know what I mean? Because you can't, in a sense, you can't fit in because you're not brought up in the same scenario as you would been if you would have stayed at home with your parents. Do you know what I mean? So.
And there's so many different reasons why people are no longer with their parents.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's an incredibly hard thing when you've come from such a tough start.
Yeah.
To then obviously be kind of thrown out to fend for yourself, and it's never easy when you've got nobody to fall back on, and that's such a hardship for anybody. Nobody gets nobody chooses to where they're born or who they're born to or how that works, so it's the luck of the draw, isn't it?
It is really.
There's a lot of problems in these institutions that are creating a lot of problems when people reach adulthood.
Yeah, 100%. There's not enough support.
Yeah.
Realistically, you don't have enough support. You don't have enough support throughout. So yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
And that's what support is, like we were saying with the two brothers to look out for you. That was the first real support.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So tell us about Tim. Tell us about your relationship with Tim then.
Relationship with Tim, yeah, I think it was pretty good. Like we always laughed and joked and, smiled and, had good times and everything else. He was a great bloke. He really was. He was
It's not easy. Yeah. It's time for bro hug. Come in with the bro hugs. And
back in career for.
Yeah.
And it might look like, it doesn't matter what it looks like to anybody. But sharing your love, I've seen you both go on a huge journey since Tim hit crisis point.
Yeah.
And I know, say to the both of you, I know he is here and smiling down on the both of you and with you every step of the way.
Yeah.
And I just want you both to know that you're both men to be proud of, and that you can sit here and talk about somebody that we only lost a couple of years ago that meant so much to you both is a beautiful thing, and I commend you both, and I commend you very much. And we can pause for a minute.
Something that I am going to talk about a lot more in podcasts moving forward is going to be about the healing techniques and things that have been really helping me personally over the last couple of years going through the trauma that I've gone through. And I've spoken a little bit about it on my blogs. You can go to istreamradio.com and look for Friday Night Live with Waxworks. You've got music there. You've got my blogs. You can subscribe there, and the podcasts are going to be going up there as well. But yeah, we're going to talk about techniques like meditation, breathing, and sharing as well, which we are doing here today. I know it's going to be really hard for you, Ross, just to sit there and talk about yours and Tim's relationship. So I think maybe we should move on and talk about the main reason we are here today. and that is to share the story of what happened to our brother, and more importantly, the reasons why it happened. It's not about grief, it's not about guilt, it's not about blame, but it is about the truth, and it is about love, and that's where we come together in this union, this brotherly union today, to talk about what happened to Tim. So it was it was a little while before lockdown. It became apparent to me that my brother was struggling. He'd been signed off work for a while, and seemed to be getting a bit more recluse, bro, wouldn't you say? Like, you know, you were coming around and seeing him a bit.
Yeah.
Kind of saw a decline of him. You know, my brother we used to go out in Shoreham all the time, me and Tim, every Friday night. You know, we were working together in the children's homes. Friday night, we go down to Marley's, we get on the beers, all of that. And I think it's around 2014, actually, 15 maybe, that kind of, he stopped going out so much after he came back from Burma, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, he was still not going out and seeing people. It was not an immediate thing. Suddenly he didn't go out. It was a gradual process. And it's important to talk about these things because these are the things that we can all watch out for each other. And initially he signed himself off of work with he said he had a bad back. That was 2018. But then in November 2019, he started to talk about that he was feeling anxious and depressed. I came back from a holiday early 2020 in February from Zanzibar, and when I went round to see my brother the next time after that, I could see that he didn't look very well either, and I was starting to be really worried about him. And I said that to him, and he opened up to me and he said he was talking to someone at Time to Talk, a therapist. He started telling me some of the things he was going through. He said some of the things he was experiencing, being paranoia. He said he was feeling anxious to get on a train to London and to go to work and things like that. And really opening up, you know, we were super close. So we had these conversations even though I wasn't living at home with him. And I know he had some conversations with you, Ross, as well about these things.
Yeah. Yep.
So it wasn't that Tim wasn't opening up in any way. He really was trying to. And in March, I became aware that he was on a medication, sertraline, that seemed to make him go from, so before where he seemed to be coming home from work and just sitting in his bedroom watching telly, to being really, hyperactive and speaking quite fast, and speaking about different things, different topics. And then telling me different information. Like at one point he was saying that he wanted to sign off from work and become my mum's full-time carer. At the other point he was going, but no, actually I want to go and work for Asphaleia. And it was April that it really hit home. Ross, I know that you got the first phone call from Mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On April 26th, wasn't it? What did she say? Do you remember?
I don't probably come round. Probably, Tim's not doing well.
And it's not like she had ever rung you before either and asked you to stay over, was it?
She's not the person. She was never the person to ring me just to ring me in general. Realistically,
it was always the other way around.
So for that to happen, I knew something was quite serious. I knew I had to go around there and try and be there and for support. Really, I didn't know what I was walking into, and half me wish I didn't pick up the phone, to be honest, because it's been a fucking roller coaster. Sorry for my swearing, but it has.
It is what it is. Can you tell us what you did walk in and what you were confronted with?
I walked in and, Tim was someone I didn't recognise anymore. He was erratic, and he was saying crazy things, and he was getting violent and outbursts, and that scared me. That scared me.
His room was in a bit of a mess, wasn't it?
His room was destroyed. After he'd spent months preparing it and making it perfect for him, and that was gone in like a day. And yeah, like I just lost him.
I've a similar experience in what happened on the 27th of April, day after Ross got his phone call, which was my birthday. And my mother rang me for the first time in her life. I've always had to ring her. And I was coming back from my morning run, and I saw it was my mum ringing, and I tried to answer it straight away, and my hands were a bit sweaty from my run, so it hung up. And but I was just 30 seconds from my front door, so I got home and got my towel and got dry and went straight in the garden and rang her back. And she answered straight away, and she didn't say happy birthday, she just said, "It's come to a head with your brother." And I just remember being in shock. My mother's 82 years old at this point, and Tim had been living with her for the last 10 years, just the two of them together. And so I just wanted to make sure I didn't frighten her. And I just said, well, it's all right, Mum, I was planning to come over this morning with some birthday cake that Sacha's made. We'll be over soon, and everything will be all right. All right? I'll see you in a minute. And we turned up and walked in, and Ross was sat in the kitchen with my mum at the kitchen table, and we'd just gone into lockdown. So my initial thing when I walked in the door was I had a bit of a pop at you, didn't I? I was like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah.
What is going on? Like, this isn't, this is all just unnatural stuff happening.
Yeah.
And then Tim was in his room, I think, at the back, and he heard me, and he came through shouting, going, "You can't tell me what to do in my house." And I can't remember exactly what he said. But again, it was just completely unnatural. My brother never shouted at me. And he wasn't well. My wife stayed in the kitchen with my mum and Ross. And me and Tim went out to the back of the garden to talk. And I'd seen that he'd been doing work out in the back garden before, but it got really bad. There was a big hole in the back of the fence with all furniture chucked in it. There was like this fire pit. He'd ripped out the seats from the back of his van, and he had them there and stuff. And he was telling me that he did it all to have fires at the end of the garden through lockdown. And obviously, I'm saying that nobody should be coming near the house. Because we're supposed to be shielding at that time. It was early days in the COVID pantomime that we've been through in the last 2 years. But Tim started saying that he had to tell me things. And one of the things he told me was that he'd spoken to Carol, who used to be a manager for him at Asphalea, and opened up to her. He said he was on the phone to her. He was over at Ada Rec, which was one of his safe places, and he'd spoken to her on the phone. And he told her that he was sexually abused when he was 10. And he said that she just turned around and she believed him, and he dropped to his knees and he said, "Thank God, I've been carrying this around for 40 years. Now I feel like someone believes me." And the reasons for that we'll talk about as well. But let's just keep with where we are. I was in contact already with his doctors about being worried about the medication not being right. Over the course of the next few days was in contact with his doctors, and it was clear that he needed to go to hospital. He wasn't well. He said he had monkeys on his shoulders, was hearing voices. And at one point, he said that my wife Sacha, who's here with us today, his face turned into his ex-girlfriend's face, and that really scared me. And he became angry about Sacha, and I was telling the doctors everything at the time, talking to them. What I didn't know is that they were also talking to my mother, and that she was telling them that there was nothing to worry about, and that he wasn't hallucinating, and that none of this was going on, when it was. My brother also, on the 1st of May, it's on his doctor's notes, and I didn't find this out until we got the notes, which was just before his inquest this year, 2022. And we're talking about what was happening back in May 2020 right now. And he'd phoned his doctor and told him about historic child sexual abuse from the age of 10. And the doctor recorded on his notes that it sounded consensual. I don't have to explain how wrong that is. But that is one of the massive failings in the build-up of the crisis, or what happened to him, because again, then he felt not believed, and that's it. It's as simple as that. And it's not easy for a grown man to open up and talk about these things. He wanted to. He was trying. He wanted the family to talk about it. The other people in the family didn't want him or me or anyone to talk about it. On the 6th of May, well, sorry, skipping a bit here. After speaking to his doctors, they did eventually say that it would be a good idea if a mental health assessment team came around and spoke to him, just to make sure he's okay. And Tim was aware of it all. And they came around on the 5th of May, and I was given sole consent by Timothy to talk to the doctors about his mental health. No other family member. I didn't know this at the time. Everything was happening. It was all so. It was like a movie. It was crazy. Not a good movie, a horror movie. Stop and breathe a minute. The mental health assessment team came, and I wasn't permitted to sit in the room with him. My older brother was instead, and they spoke to him. And the final part of the assessment was to say that he would have to go to hospital for an assessment voluntarily. If he didn't go, he would get sectioned. As a family, we felt that we'd got him to agree to go. But I was told that they couldn't find a bed that night by my other brother. What I didn't know was actually Tim was refusing to go. But it was agreed that Ross would stay there again overnight. That me and Sash would go home. Mark and the others would go home. And would come back the next day, and I would try and take Tim to hospital rather than him be sectioned or taken off in an ambulance or anything like that. And so we came back early the next morning. I was told that the crisis team were going to ring in the morning and they'd say, well, where we could take him. And when we turned up in the morning, my sister was already in the house, and the door was locked. And I didn't hang about. I kicked the side gate open, just to make sure I could see where my mother was, and she was in the kitchen, and Ross was in the kitchen, and Joanne was in there as well. Tim was in his room at the front of the house at this point. And I went back round to the front of the house, and there was something outside the front of his window, a little chair or something at the time. And I sat on it so I wasn't looking through the window, but so I knew he could hear me. And I just said, bro, please, let me take you to the hospital and let me get you some help. And then he was moved into the back room, the one that he was calling the devil room at the time, with my sister. And so I went back round to the other side to try and talk to my mum and who was in the house. My brother turned up, older brother turned up, and he was let in, and we were still left outside. Whilst you were standing in the kitchen crying as soon as you saw that we couldn't be let in.
Yeah, it's very hard. You know, very hard. You got manicness going on inside the house. Then you got your brother and his wife on the other side, and you're not allowed to open the door. You know, and you're stuck. You're stuck in between. You know what I mean?
It wasn't a fair position for you to be put in, and it's not how it should have happened. And this is isolation. This is pure isolation, what they were doing. I had no idea that what was going on at the time. It was, as I say, nothing like this had ever happened in our family before. We'd never had any arguments, flare-ups. We were so close. And I was being told at this point that I was Tim's trigger, or my wife was first, I think Sacha was. And Tim couldn't see Sacha. And Sacha needs to go away. Sacha's not in the family. Oh, and that she had scary eyes because she was staring through the window. Meanwhile, I'm talking to my mum through the cat flap, trying to get her to let me in. The police were called. Ambulance came, tried to speak to my brother and get him to go, but he was refusing at this point. If he kept refusing, he would have been sectioned. And that's what I didn't want to happen. I believe that's exactly what the other side of the party wanted to happen. And they knew what they were doing. And that's what makes it so disgusting. The other two siblings had not been around for the last 30 years. Ross, let's talk about that quickly. Just to ease up a bit. You lived with our mother for a year and a bit, maybe.
Yep.
Me and Tim, always there.
You and Tim always there. The others were there for Christmas, there for birthdays, there when they wanted money, pretty much, without being harsh. But that's how it was. They were never in the family dynamic of every day. It was always you and Tim, you know what I mean? And that's why
we were living there, so
we had a better bond, you know what I mean? You guys actually accepted me into the family. The other two, I was just a child. I was just like a foster child, you know what I mean?
Well, I remember when I was saying trying to say that you should stay there when Tim went into hospital, and the other brother, not Tim, was saying that he's not family, and I was just like, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, this is it.
Blood doesn't always make family.
No.
Families being there for each other,
100%.
Going through things with each other.
Yeah.
And these people just hadn't been around. And I did make a mistake of trusting them. Because you're supposed to be able to trust your family, right? Especially your mother. But that was a really traumatic day. It ended up with myself and Sacha not being let in, having to go and wait at the beach at the end of the road, and be told when Tim would go to hospital, not knowing if he was going to be taken away sectioned or how he was getting there, what was going on. I eventually got a text message from my other brother saying that Tim had decided he's agreed to go in and he was going to take him. And he was then taken to Meadowfield in Worthing, where he was a patient for 4 weeks.
Okay, boys, so I think we're going to give it a break for episode 1 now.
Yeah.
And we can see there's a lot of emotion involved, and everybody needs a pause. We can have a little Wim Hof moment.
Everybody needs a pause.
Have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to tell.
There's a lot to get out and to let go of.
We've got to be kind on ourselves at the same time. Like I said at the beginning, the disclaimer is if we need a pause, we have to have a pause, and that's exactly what we need.
Exactly. Take it slow. Polly, like they told us in Zanzibar.
Yep.
Polly. Okay, so yeah, that's episode 1. And thank you, boys, for being so brave. Guys, I shouldn't call you boys. I know you're men, really. Yeah, we love you, and we'll be back for episode 2.
You will. Namaste.